Hey again. So in the previous video about depression, this part is a two-part series, right? This is part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, check it out. So in the previous video, we talked about how acupuncture or Chinese medicine understands depression and the many types of depression that there are, and what the thinking behind it is, pretty much. And I was telling you that in this video, in part 2, we're going to deep dive into what the actual journey for the patient looks like. What it looks like, you know, how do you experience stuff? Because if you are suffering from depression, or you know someone who is suffering from depression, and you or that someone else have taken some pills, for example antidepressants, it's got no similitude to this whatsoever. It's not similar at all. Generally, taking pills and following a natural process, these things are as opposite as you can get, as different as you can get. With a pill, it goes away, poof, disappears. Only that it doesn't, because when the pill's effect wears off, it's right there with you. So when we treat at a deep level, when we treat depression at a causal level, we need to go with the meanders of the psyche. And the reason, one of the many reasons, one of the most important of these many reasons that I'm doing these videos, guys, is because society and our common knowledge does not prepare us at all for these meanders of the psyche, but they are as common as it gets once you go through this process. So what I'm going to tell you is one of the most common scenarios that you would encounter in such a case if treating depression. So let's assume that we're going to treat one of the most common types of depression. We talked about it in the previous video in this two-part series. We're going to talk about treating the wood kind of depression. Wood as in one of the 5 elements in Chinese medicine: wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So the wood element, if you remember from the previous video, I was describing as being the energy that is prevalent in spring, right? When the whole nature comes to life and it's a blossoming and it's an explosion of things coming to life and things coming to the surface. Well, one of the causes of depression is that instead of it exploding into a creative endeavor, into an overcoming of the obstacles, into something that expresses power towards reaching a destination, you actually hit a ceiling, and instead of an explosion, there's an implosion, right? Because there's something like a lid on top of it that forces all that explosion to come right back in. And what should have exploded creatively towards the outside actually turns it towards the inside and implodes destructively. And that's how you get depressed, right? That's the mechanics of it, right? Okay, so the question then arises, okay, what is that big obstacle? Why is there a big obstacle in the first place? And the most common answer in more than, let's say, probably more than 80%, likely more than in 90% of the cases, the problem lies with anxiety. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean, right? But just for now, let's just remember that anxiety and depression are hand in hand a lot of the times. A lot of the times. I bet you that right now you're crying your eyes out because you hear me talking and you say, yes, that's me, that's exactly me, right? This video is for you, right? Because I've seen this kind of dynamic over and over and over and over again, in which anxiety and depression are like, brother and sister holding each other's hand, and it would be bad enough if you suffer only from one of them, but just to make things really bad, they come together. However, there is a good news. There is a silver lining in all this process. It's not just two things independently present in your life. Their presence in your life actually hangs upon them being linked. Because once you solve one of them, namely anxiety, you start solving the other one as well. So basically you treat one, but you actually treat both. How does that go? Well, let's analyze a little bit what the mechanics behind it are, because the whole idea behind this part too is to explain to you what happens and why they're linked, and why the treatment for such a depression is non-linear. So you need to take that into account when you come in for such a treatment, because these things are non-linear. So maybe you realize you have anxiety, maybe you don't realize you have anxiety. Well, it actually depends on the level of anxiety that you have. If you know you have anxiety, then there's not much point in discussing it. You know you have it. There is point in discussing it if you don't think you have it, right? Now, then I come and tell you, answer me this, right? Do you avoid conflict? Do you behave like a nice person when you don't really would like to be a nice person, but you just want to avoid conflict? It's okay, let's not fight, let's keep it simple and nice and polite, and let's have it your way. It's just the same, it's okay. Do you give up like that, right? When someone could confront you, or you see like a confrontation coming on the horizon, and you say, no, it's okay, I don't want a conflict, I just want peace and quiet, right? And you kind of give up on your desires and your wishes, and there are things that you would like to see different and they annoy you, but you don't speak up because you would like to, just have a simple life. And of course, some of you, because I hear that often in therapy, because I've heard thousands and thousands of stories, you might be thinking, well, it's not as easy as stepping into a conflict, because who would you be having a conflict with? Most of the time it's someone you're kind of stuck with, right? Either at work or in your personal life. You can't fight with your bosses because then you'll be kicked out of your job, or you can't fight with your spouse because you're supposed to be living together, right? And if you can't, happy wife, happy life, right? Or happy spouse, happy life, right? And of course it even gets more complicated if there are children involved, right? Because, okay, I could split up from him or her, but we have children, and we want to provide them a nice, happy, stable home. Yeah, fuck all. It's like, yeah, they're gonna really be in the best of positions in terms of stability and nourishment when they think back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, thinking on how happy they were to live in a family where the conflict was there, but just under the surface, right? Because we don't want open conflict, we want repressed conflict, right? Because maybe that's how you got to therapy. Or if you didn't get to therapy, but you raise your children like that, I guarantee you that your children will be patients, or should be patients, for a kind of therapy, because this kind of an internalized anger and frustration is not good for anyone, right? It's toxic for everyone involved. Parents, children, families, everyone, right? So you're not doing anyone a favor if you just swallow it, right? So that's what anxiety looks like. You don't need to shiver in fear. That's not just anxiety. That could be panic attacks, that could be phobias, that could be just outright fear. But anxiety, more often than not, is like an avoidance of conflict. It's like an avoidance of being yourself. It's like making nice so that you don't upset anyone. Well, guess what? You're upset. If you don't upset them, you're already upset because you're not okay with how things are. And this, together with the next thing that you're going to be upset with, but you're not going to say it, together with the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes a lifestyle of swallowed down conflict. That's how you get depression, right? Because there's frustration. What would you like to do? To explode in everyone's faces, and that of course would be very destructive, and your world will be coming crashing down to an end. And of course you cannot do that. That's the way the thinking goes, I assume. And because you cannot go that way, then you just retreat into your little corner, being all sad and depressed, and you know, such is life, and nobody's really truly happier than that. And what else, you know, what more can you wish for? Because there are so many people and so many couples and so many families that are much unhappier than you. I mean, look at those poor things in Gaza right now, or in any other conflict in the world, or something like that. They don't have a roof over their head. They're bombed out of existence. And you have it all. These are small things. You can't complain. Can you? Well, can you now? Yes, you damn can, right? Because you have your own life to mind, right? And you need to sort out your challenges in your life. And to avoid conflict is to avoid fighting for your soul. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know why you're here, but I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm talking to you right now because my desire is to empower your spirit. Now, you may want that or you may not. You may find a number of excuses for it or you may not. I know why I'm here. And I know what I've been able to help those people who have said, you know, I've had enough of this shit. I want out. If that's you, watch on. If that's not you, you might as well switch to another video, right? Because it ultimately boils down to, are you willing to fight for your soul? That's the bottom line. Maybe you don't have the resources, maybe you don't have the instruments, maybe you don't have the understanding or the knowledge or the calibration. Everything else is included in therapy, right? What is not included and cannot be included is your free will to decide that you are worth fighting for. Only you can decide that. Nobody else can. Right? Now again, you might be thinking, so what does this have to do with therapy and with depression? And right, well, it has to do with the fact that anxiety is an inhibitor of the fighting spirit. Anxiety is an inhibitor of anything that is unstable. Conflict, by definition, is provoking instability, generating instability, because the very essence of the wood element is change. Do you want change? Now, you cannot want comfortable change, right? Comfort and change it's like, if you put them together, they're in a contradiction. It's an oxymoron. You cannot have comfort in change. When you have change, at least meaningful change, you cannot have the deepest of comforts. You cannot, right? Change means instability, right? And we people, we humans are dying to have everything stable, everything familiar, right? This is why we're afraid of it. This is why we are fearful of it. That's why we avoid conflict, usually, as a tendency, right? And that's the problem, because depression is an inversion of the explosion that would have been, could have been, should have been, but wasn't. and probably wasn't for most of your life, because usually these things have very, very deep roots in childhood. That's how it starts. So because that's how it starts, that's how deep the therapy needs to go, because we need to address that that break that you have on expressing yourself. We need to address the instability, the anxiety, this aversion of conflict, or to conflict, right? That is inhibiting you from actually speaking up, having your voice heard, putting your foot down, saying no when you mean no. It's called actually being authentic. Yeah. So how does treatment look, right? You come to therapy and say, okay, I'm ready, I want it, let's go. What can I expect? Well, what can you expect? We address anxiety first. And the irony is that anxiety is actually pretty easy to solve, right? It's not the biggest hurdle, right? It's not anxiety that's the biggest hurdle, even though it's the one that we can clearly see. It's not the biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle is what happens after that. Because a life disconnected from anxiety is a life which gushes forward in a way that will surprise you, and it will definitely surprise the people next to you. Not in the most pleasant ways, at least for them. You might like it, you might actually really enjoy it, because finally you'll be able to say everything that you've always wanted to express. You'll finally live in the most alive senses possible. You will live with your whole heart in a way which has not felt so alive since you were born. Because there will be no more breaks on your being alive. There will be no more breaks on you saying what you really, truly, deeply mean. Now, of course, you might be thinking, ooh, sounds nice, but a little bit dangerous. Now, of course, you can calibrate that. Not in the first period, not in the first period of the treatment, right? In the first phase. Because in the first phase, it will be probably, right? It will start slow, gradually build up, and then there will be an exponential explosion in which you become a little bit unhinged. And then you discover the pleasure, you discover the joy, you discover the, finally, alive. Yes. And that, my friend, is when your life truly, truly starts. And you can probably imagine that by that time, depression won't actually have a hold on you, at least not in as much as it has. Now, different people have different amounts of frustration, but usually it goes from very much to more than that, right? This is the range, right? From very much, usually much more than you think, much more than you think, towards a lot, right? A whole lot more than you think. But that frustration, that anger, that rage, they come up. They also come up with some physical symptoms, so you don't need to be afraid of that. They may come up with things related to the liver and gallbladder, migraines, headaches, discomfort in the liver and gallbladder area, bloating without a connection to food that you eat, various other stuff. Oh, by the way, feeling having low energy levels, feeling like you're depressed, feeling like you want everyone else to just leave you alone, right? But the good thing is, and by the way, yes, I know, some of you are saying, but I already have that. Yes, I know, yeah, I know. All this is going to be cleared out, right? Because we have treatments that address the root cause. They address the anxiety. They nurture those seeds of inner power, of inner strength. And we're going to have a whole video dedicated to how they do that, right? But that's a whole discussion in and of itself. And once they do that, right, that power grows in you. And then of course, there will be the explosion of the volcano. There will be anger and frustration and that rage at some point. But then we do treatments that, turn it down. Actually, they clear it out. And once that clears, the good stuff remains, the bad stuff goes away. The good stuff remains, what do I mean? The good stuff, the really nice stuff, is the one that is going away. Like what? It's going to be like the anger goes away, the frustration goes away, the physical symptoms go away, but the authenticity remains. The power to say no when you mean to say no, that remains, right? So these are really, really nice. They're incredible, right? So this is what actually matters. And this opens up to a whole new level. This opens up a whole new dimension of your life. This opens up a dimension in which you feel that you have the steering wheel of your life in your own hands. It is absolutely incredibly empowering. That is true therapy at its deepest level. So I hope I've inspired you with this. I hope I've given you hope. I hope I've rattled you in some respect. I hope I've shared with you a glimpse of what is possible. Because actually, just to draw the line, right, beyond the process, only one thing really matters in the end. Will you fight for you, for your soul? That's what matters. I'll see you in the next video.